that end, I would love to segue to our wonderful speaker for today, Isabelle Shepherd. And if you had looked at our any of our social media, Isabelle is a creative person in Wilmington, or a creative force in Wilmington. She currently works with the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees. I got that. But then she's also worked in nonprofit management, advocacy. She's worked with the Historical Foundation. She's a published poet. She just has her hands in a lot of different types of pieces of creativity. And I think one of the things that she's going to talk about is how all those influences and how all those things have built on each other and kind of inspire the work that she does as she kind of pushes along in her creative career. So to that end, I will stop talking and introduce, I'm going to put it back for Isabelle Shepherd.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Is this good with like the recording? Fantastic, all good. I'm really loud, so if I get too loud, please let me know. Someone just push me down a little bit. It's very fortunate. I have finally found a job where getting mouthy at the mic is like part of the whole gig. So good morning, my name is Isabelle Shepherd. In most professional settings, I introduce myself as the executive director of the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees. But given that this is Creative Mornings, I will also be introducing myself as a poet. Trained at UNCW, I have an MFA in creative writing. I am widely published, and I'll kick this off this morning by reading one of my poems, which was published in Redivider. It's called This Way of Touching. The games we play on our screens create a world without casualties. If I hit you, smoke pixelates, nothing more. It's not a violence, this way of touching. On the radio, talk of bombings, collapsed underground tunnels, 911 calls, and bodies burning. While we listen, we do not touch. Sometimes we learn things like this. It's rare, but sometimes a baby's heart will grow outside its body, and after birth, doctors tuck its beating back into the body beneath a blanket of skin. We learn the child will need so many more surgeries to push her heart deeper and deeper inside her chest, and will wear a plastic shield for the rest of her abbreviated life. When the segment ends, you ask me to look up how it's done, how they keep the world from touching the heart. Who here is a Grey's Anatomy fan? Yeah. Raise it high, raise it high. I say that's a news story. Nay. That is, here we go. Nay, that is actually from a Grey's Anatomy episode, but turns out that does happen. So anyway, so obviously my writing is really focused on how kind of the world breaks into our spaces, how we process that information. And so today I want to talk about creativity, especially my background in poetry and how it has carried me from a childhood in West Virginia to nonprofit leadership in Wilmington. And the skills I honed in the arts turned out to be surprisingly practical and helping me advocate for trees, for communities, and for change. Growing up in West Virginia, my mother, out of either benign neglect or Montessori-style teaching, when I wanted to play with her, would tell me, go outside and make up a story. And so I did that, and that's really where my creativity kind of sprung. I was outside looking at fossils, looking at trees, making up stories for myself. So I've always been creative, but I began college actually, funny enough, as a business major, specializing in nonprofit management. I wanted to run, get this, an environmental nonprofit. But the business school was like so not for me, y'all. They were talking about early retirement, how they liked golfing. The classes were talking to me about how money made more money magically, and I was just like not about it. So I switched to political science and English. Sorry about that. So I switched to political science and English, and I actually told my family that I wanted to become a lawyer. And my dad's side of the family, to be clear, New York Jews. You would think that the lawyer thing would be like, thumbs up, go for it. But indeed, my family is a family of artists. Can you click to the, oh, right. Oh, you're already on it. Look, you've got the, here we go. So family of artists, right? My grandfather nurtured improvisational theater. This is his obituary in the New York Times. And then, let's see, he started Compass Players, which became Second City. That's where a lot of SNL folks come from. Flip to the next. This is, oh, one before. This is my bubby, Isabelle Shepherd, famous for playing mothers, I guess. She was a little less renowned, but then if you'll scroll to the next scene, you might recognize her from Uncle Buck. She was the principal with a large wart on her chin, which apparently she put on as a piece of bubble gum before her audition. So in any case, that's her. This is my Aunt Kate's work. She is shown in museums across the world, in major galleries. Her work is very interesting. I could talk about it all day. And then if you'll flip, this is my mom. She was an art teacher for forever. She went to art school. This is a wood block painting of her and my father. It's incredible. And this is some of her newer work. And then if you'll flip to the last one, this is family Thanksgiving circus. We have a circus every Thanksgiving together. We eat our meal and then we go, and everyone has to come with an act. In this one, this is me wearing my mother's fur coat. I am a bear. She is a bear tamer. If you'll scroll to the next one, this is some sort of monster, again, being tamed. There was a lot of taming, I guess, in the family Thanksgiving. So in any case, so I come from this family of artists, and everyone else was making art, right? And they looked at me and they were like, why the hell are you talking about contracts? But that practicality, that desire to turn creativity into the real world has always been really deeply ingrained in me. But partially probably because of the reactions of my family and some other life circumstances that happened, I did end up deciding to pursue poetry. But again, guided a bit by a desire for practicality. I chose UNCW because they have a publishing lab through the university. So in addition to learning how to write poetry, I also was learning how to present poetry to various audiences, how to make it real and tangible and accessible. So I studied, shout out to Adobe, learned Adobe InDesign, and also I had workshops, right? And anyone who has been in a creative writing or any kind of workshop, you have to sit there silently and take a bunch of folks' critique in and figure out who is my reader, who is not, who should I be listening to, what do I incorporate. It is a constant, you're taking in a lot and you're trying to transform what you're writing and to kill your darlings in the service of clarity. And these skills would turn out to be vital outside of the classroom, outside of the publishing industry. So while I was getting my poetry degree and after, while I was getting it, when I would go on first dates, inevitably, the question would be, what the hell are you going to do with that poetry degree? And then when I graduated from college and was applying for jobs, the interviewers were asked, what the hell are you doing with this creative writing degree? And I had the same answer for honestly both of them. And that is that creativity, or that poetry, in essence, is trying to distill a message in as brief as possible to convey a feeling, to move someone, to emote with you, to change with you, to expand their way of thinking, right? That's what poetry is. And yeah, that's marketing. I know a lot of y'all are in marketing. We all do marketing, we're all creative, and then we're like, we have to make money, so we do marketing. And so that's marketing. That is grant writing. That is public speaking, right? So I would answer that, poetry is this art of succinctly expressing a powerful idea. And that answer became even more true once I entered my professional life in the nonprofit industry. So I used to work at WHQR Public Radio, 91.3 FM, call 910-343-1138 to make your donation. And the weather. So I started blending my creative writing with journalism, and you can even see that in the poem that I read a little bit, that journalism was eking into my work. And it did make me feel very connected to Wilmington, to this place. You know, as you're reporting on things, you can't help but talk to the folks who are making decisions here, and the folks who are changing things and what the issues are. And I just really fell in love with Wilmington and decided to stay here. So I've had various positions, but I've been in nonprofits for about 10 years with the Historic Wilmington Foundation, Step Up Wilmington, and now with the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees. So to give you some background, because I would be remiss as the executive director if I didn't talk about what we do. We have been around for 10 years. We have given out over 15,000 trees. We have planted more than 3,000. And our mission is to preserve, protect, and plant trees in the Lower Cape Fear region. And for a large part of that 10-year history, we had really focused on planting, right? We were really big on planting. Let's stick some trees in the ground and watch them grow, and that is very fulfilling, to be clear. We have days where you can come out, you can help us plant trees. I highly encourage it. You leave feeling renewed. But in any case, I did, when I came on board, focus on that preserving and protecting part of it, right? I came from a background in historic preservation, and I used to say, you know, you can't build a new old house. You just can't. The wood doesn't exist anymore. Those materials don't exist anymore. And when I transitioned into this role, it became very easy to swap that out to, you know, you can't plant a new old growth tree. You can't get those hundreds of years of benefits just by planting a sapling. And so I found it very important to advocate for the trees that are still standing, to, especially in the face of, you know, rapid development. We all see trees coming down all throughout our city. And of course, climate change is only going to exacerbate that. It will take down more trees, and further, the more that we take down trees, the more we feel the effects of climate change. So let's see here. So this is where my creative training actually came in. I sit in meetings with arborists and urban foresters who speak in a very technical language. I say, Bill, can you send me like 6 bullet points on how I should phrase this policy? And Bill sends me 6 pages. And I'm like, great, Bill, thank you so much. I guess this is what I asked for. So in any case, I take all of that and sort of translate it into messages that someone will hear, will connect with. And I find that in the scientific community, I'm not gonna lie, has welcomed me with open arms and is just like, thank God, because we write papers, we'll do a slideshow, but we will not put together an op-ed, right? Or write an Action Network petition that folks will sign and send in. So when I worked at the Historic Wilmington Foundation, one of the issues that came up while I was interim executive director was decisions about developing the west bank of the Cape Fear River. And there were, it's kind of highly technical, I don't need to go into all of the details, but they were setting it up to essentially be planned for low impact development. And a bunch of local organizations came together. I'm not gonna lie, I did that a lot. That was kind of a lot of emails. But in any case, a lot of organizations came together and we united around a shared message, which I wrote and which was sent to the planning director for New Hanover County, poor Rebecca Roth, over 3,000 times. So that really solidified for me that there is a power in advocacy for this kind of writing, that it can be used for that sort of public good, that it can drive people to action. And so my ability to edit, to get input, right, from a bunch of different sources, like Sierra Club was like, we want this changed, and the Bellamy Mansion wanted this other piece changed, and I had to coalesce all of those ideas into something that everyone could get behind so that we could stand as a united force. And to be clear, the West Bank, they changed their minds on that. The New Hanover County Commissioners, the Planning Department, thank you very much. Thank you. It is now in its sort of vision statement that is for scientific research, environmental education, for the enjoyment of the public. And so that's kind of when I realized I didn't leave poetry behind. I just carried it into a new form. We sometimes separate creativity from practicality, but in my experience, the two need each other, right? Data alone rarely moves people. Stories do. Creativity turns information into a narrative, and that narrative turns into action. So when development has threatened Sledge Forest, I have been writing speeches and various policy statements. In any case, have written about Sledge Forest a lot. If any of you don't know, it is a 3,000-acre floodplain forest in the north part of New Hanover County that is currently threatened by development. It is one of our region's last old-growth floodplain forests. It has Atlantic white cedars and loblolly pines of 300 years of age, just an incredible resource for us at the northern part of the county, and it really protects us from a lot of storm surge. So if that is threatened, it threatens our entire community and not just the northern part of it. And further, when farmland preservation was on the line at the Flossie-Bryan tract, same deal. So it wasn't just facts that saved the day, it was creative communication that mobilized the community. One of the things that I have been working on recently and that I hope you will start hearing about a lot, I'm going to pass out 3 copies of this. Please do not leave with them. They are my only 3 copies. So I'll pass one around here. We'll start one here and back here. So this is Code and Canopy. Essentially, when I took on this role, I started getting really annoyed with playing whack-a-mole when it came to development proposals, because some development would come up and we would have an issue with it because oftentimes they are not kind to the trees, but the planning department would say, look, this fits our codes, this follows our ordinances, there's nothing we can do to tell a private property owner no in this case because they're playing by the rules, right? So I thought, we got to change those rules. Then we have to change the playbook if that's what we want to see. So I researched other cities in sort of a manic state that reminded me of late night MFA sessions of writing poetry. It's same energy, kind of. And I looked into policies in other cities. I figured out, and specifically southeastern cities. You know, I'm not talking about Austin. I mentioned it once because Austin's pretty cool. But most of it is all southeastern examples, sister cities to Wilmington, and showing what we can do within the confines of the law. That's right, law. Somehow I managed to get right back to it. And in fact, one of the things that is preventing counties and cities from enacting greater tree preservation, and here's where I'm going to bore you all, but stay with me, is that during the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, there was a Helene Rescue Act that was passed. All kinds of rescue provisions, all good things. But as the way that lawmakers do, they slipped in this awful provision that restricts downzoning abilities for local governments. And that means that a local government can't say, hey, this property was zoned to build 200 houses. We now have to downzone that. And because of its environmental resources, it can only bulldoze 100, right? Or pardon, it can only build 100. Local governments now do not have the power to do that. Which is a really hamstrung, right? They want to change things, but these state level rules make that impossible. So I wrote a piece of legislation that is now in Code and Canopy to say, look, this is what we could do to fix this problem, to nip it in the bud. We will be campaigning and working with other tree organizations, I believe, in the next legislative session to try to get something passed. This past legislative session, HB 24 tried to do that, and we did some advocacy to get that passed. It did not end up passing both chambers of our General Assembly before the cutoff date, but we will try again next year. So in any case, this document, though, started off as an 8-page, single-spaced Word doc that no one would ever frickin' read, right? Like, no one. But I wanted to turn it into something that a county planner could use. I wanted to turn it into something that if you are advocating for trees and tree preservation, you can read this and have the language to do so more distinctly, right? I wanted to make it so that, look, planners, you don't even have to write the code. I literally have written it for you. You can just plug and play this now, right? Because the planners are overburdened. Quite frankly, I do feel for them. They are doing a lot with a little, and so to support in that way, to be able to provide, and if you can flip to the next one, I think, yes. So this is my intro, but also this is the part that I was talking about with challenging Senate Bill 382 in terms of downzoning. So, I haven't published my poetry collection yet. I'll be real with y'all. I'm still working on it. Although the poems really have gone a pretty far way. But this is, in many ways, a manuscript. This is a creative product that I am really hoping will touch people, will reach them in much the same way, will move them to action. And that is the beauty of it all, right? I have somehow managed to do a full circle, and I am still that girl going out into the woods and making up a story. Thank you so much for your time.
So sometimes we pass around the mic, but we're so cozy here today. So if anyone has any questions for Isabelle, let's have them.
Less of a question, just thank you for the advocacy in such an effective way, like genuinely.
Thank you. Yeah.
Isabelle, have you interacted with Parks and Gardens in New Hanover County?
Absolutely, yes. We work with the Parks Department, Parks and Rec, Sally Thigpen over there, Amy Beatty. I've actually sent this document already to our municipal partners. So the Parks and Rec Department has already seen it. The Planning Department for both the city and the county, I wanted to have their eyes on it first. I didn't want to like spring this on them. That's not the point of it. And in fact, I should mention that one of the things I tried to do in that document is showcase how Wilmington has in some ways enacted more progressive tree policies, right? When I got into this role, I'm feisty, and I was like, clearly they're not doing enough. I'm gonna research this and I'm gonna figure out, why this is not working. And what I realized was that Wilmington actually had put in place a lot of codes that are kind of model policies for cities to enact. Unfortunately, the development that we're seeing was approved under old codes, but we are seeing it being built now. So I think there's a disconnect there. So I wanted to show what the city is already doing, and I wanted to get their approval on that front, and they have seen it and provided feedback. They are appreciative of it. So we're gonna put this out as really a collaborative project. I also have, we will be sending this to all of our elected officials. We will be setting up meetings with all of them. We will set up meetings with the planning department. They all update their codes and ordinances about quarterly. So our goal is not to enact all of this, right, as one big measure. Our goal is to get in there and say, look, this quarter, can we just implement this one policy change that will make an impact? And bit by bit, then we actually know what our impact is, right? Because when the Flossie Bryan farmland, for instance, was preserved for low impact recreation, environmental education, and scientific study, that was a huge community effort. That was various neighborhood groups, it was Roger Shoe, it was the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees, it was all of these groups coming together, and that did work, right? But I wanted a measurable way to say, like, what are we doing? What is the Alliance doing in a systematic way to preserve trees? And so this is both a roadmap, it is also a measuring tool for our own success.
What do you think has been, like, since you've been working here, your biggest, or like maybe like not biggest accomplishment, but whatever you're like most proud of, like that you've done with like the trees and stuff like
with
that?
The Alliance?
Yeah.
I've got to say this was while I was with the Historic Wilmington Foundation, but that West Bank moment, I have never seen that many organizations come together around one message and actually unite behind it and get the entire community involved and somehow manage to get 3,000 people. Do you know how many people vote in a municipal election in Wilmington? It is like pretty much 3,000. It is not a lot of people. So to get that many folks to rally behind a message, to send it, to have, I mean, when they held their meeting, I think Charlie Rivenbark printed out the 3,000 emails, which, by the way, not environmentally sustainable, but they did it anyway. And you know what, it proved a point. But they printed out all of the emails to say, this is the feedback that we got and this is how we're responding. And that, to me, I mean, nearly moved me to tears. It is what carries me forward. It is the model that I want to follow for all of this.
What's your favorite tree?
Oh, what a great question. Okay, anyone and everyone who can plant a tree, plant a live oak. A southern live oak, they host like over 1,000 organisms. They're broad canopy, they're wide-reaching roots. They are just creme de la creme of local trees. They're like the best thing you can do for the environment. I have to say, back home, in some ways, my favorite tree is the black walnut. I had one outside of my father's home growing up, and the smell of them, that sort of like citrusy, earthy smell, is like the smell of my childhood. I don't think they're the prettiest tree, to be clear, but the walnut's really cool. Okay.
Thank you all so much for coming out.
Thank you, Isabelle. That was wonderful. Next month, we're actually going to be back here at station number 2 with MT Bottles. If you don't know who MT Bottles is, he's a local comedian, MC, host of various activities around town, and it's going to be on October 24th, so we're looking forward to that. But we mostly just love when everyone comes out and gets to hear from creative people in the community. So once again, thank you so much to Isabelle Shepherd. Thank you. And we'll see you next month.